Welcome to the Mindset RX podcast, a show for functional athletes who want to gain a champ's mindset. My name is Tom Foxley and I'm the founder and the head coach of Mindset RX. Today's show is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, but it hasn't been long enough since the original podcast to go into any more detail on it. This podcast is so important though, because it encapsulates what you can do on a huge scale. Because whilst the principles I talk about this are proven in such a kind of vivid or such an extreme way, they can be applied to your life too. And that's the key of any kind of mindset principles. They have to not only work at the kind of the easy end of the spectrum, they have to work at the hard end too, where shit really matters, essentially. And if you can remember back to the guest that I had in the podcast a while back, I think it was the most recent guest that I've had on, Mark Ormrod. Mark was a former Royal Marines commando who essentially got blown up in Afghanistan, and he was the first surviving triple amputee from British forces from Afghanistan. And so this means he's got, I think it's no legs just above the knee, so like halfway down his femur, he's missing his legs from there. He's missing one arm almost completely, and he's got one fully functioning hand or one fully functioning arm left. So this happened on Christmas Eve, I think, in 2007. Fast forward, and I'm not going to take you through his whole story because it's in the back catalogue somewhere, so you can look for that. And it really is a brilliant story for you guys to listen to. But what I want to do is, because if we fast forward, what we can see... Oh, sorry, let me restart that garbled sentence again. If we fast forward, what we can see is that Mark recently went to the Invictus Games, a kind of a physical contest for injured and wounded veterans, and it was set up by Prince Harry, but he went there and he dominated the competition. And he did this in so many different events. I think it was 7 different medals he ended up with. I think 3 or 4 gold. And yeah, one of the events. This is an incredible story. Firstly, you can imagine how difficult swimming is when you've got one limb that's as it originally was. So you can imagine how difficult this is. I think when Mark went swimming for the first time, he said he almost drowned because he just had no idea of how to float. He just jumped in head first, and that's the lesson in itself. But he won. I think 1 medal first, and then they said, "You know what, Mark? Do you want to?" We're just about to cancel the event because we don't have enough people in the future event, and the event is breaststroke. And Mark had never done this event before. He had he had never swum breaststroke, so he was given the kind of. Well, actually, no. I think he just went, you know what, fuck it. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do this event. I'm gonna take part in it, and whatever happens, happens. So not only does he finish the event, but he wins it. He wins this event where he's never done breaststroke in his life before, never done breaststroke since his accident. And the first thing he does upon winning the event is not celebrate, but turn around and cheer on the other participants in the event. And that in itself is incredible. It's an incredible thing to do as a human being. It's an incredible thing to do as an athlete. And what we've got to realize is these principles displayed by someone like Mark Ormrod are things that we can apply too. And this is the value of having your own personal principles or your own personal values. And by the way, this comes just 1 day after the Royal Marines' 354th birthday, so I've got to give that a quick shout out as well. So happy birthday to all the bootnecks out there. But what Mark showed in this is some incredible lessons that we can extrapolate and apply to our lives. And there's 2 things to note here. Number 1 is these have been tested in in the kind of the harshest of situations, the most difficult of situations, the ones that create struggle, or the ones that are closest to struggle, and the ones that will be hardest for us to overcome. But on top of that, I think the more important thing is that we have to live life by these values, and we have to isolate our values, because at some point, whether it is something as traumatic as what happened to Mark, or whether it's something kind of easier to deal with, or less difficult to deal with, I think is probably a better way of putting it. Whatever happens, you are going to come up and be tested in this. Like the dragon of chaos is going to come and bite you at some point. So you need to be prepared for this, and you're not going to just be able to act the way you want in that moment under all that stress. You've got to practice it time and time again. So having these principles is invaluable for not only day-to-day life, but when shit gets difficult as well. And what I love about this is if we look at the Royal Marines, the first thing that I was taught about when I started kind of going down the route into joining the Royal Marines was the ethos, the commando spirit, and the values that go into becoming a Royal Marines commando. And what I want to touch on is four things, and that's the four aspects of the commando, or the four elements of the commando spirit, which are courage, determination, unselfishness, and cheerfulness in the face of adversity, or humor in the face of adversity. So those four values there are what Mark had practiced time in, time out, not only to earn his Green Beret initially, but also to get deployed in Afghanistan. So these four values that he's lived by, part of the military is you have to live by these values, and if you do not, you don't do very well, or you can't complete it, or you don't even stay in there, or you just feel like outcast. But living by those four values, when that shit happened, like let's just look at the aspects of that. We can draw out courage, like the courage to continue living and aiming for a better version of life. Like he did that from the word go almost. The determination, I can't imagine the determination that you have to draw upon to continue that, and to continue moving like forwards when you've lost 3 of your 4 limbs. The determination, and then the unselfishness. The unselfishness here, like as soon as Mark won the event, he wasn't thinking about himself, he was thinking about helping other people. That's huge. And if you need me to draw parallels to a CrossFit competition, like you're kind of missing the point here. Apply it straight away. And then cheerfulness in the face of adversity. If you go back and listen to that podcast, Mark is fun, he's affable, he's relaxed, he's not an intimidating human being, hasn't got this kind of veneer of falsity that so many people can have. He's humble, and that's a huge thing. And he's got this cheerfulness in the face of adversity. When shit goes wrong, you laugh. Like the fact he was making me laugh about someone grabbing hold of the bone of his femur to keep him on the Land Rover when he was being I almost said excavated, when he was being evacuated. That's the word. When he was being evacuated, the fact that he found that humor in there is huge. And I'm gonna say it again. He lived by these values before, so when stuff got difficult, he was able to continue living by them, not have to make them up anew. And this is what we all have to do as athletes. We have to decide on our values, decide who we want to be up front. Because when you get to a difficult time in your life when you can't train as much, or you get to like the peak of your physical training, you get to the peak of your career, or just anything that is a stressful, difficult situation, you have to have these ingrained into you until they're second nature. Because if you don't, you're gonna not be the type of person that you want to be. Your subconscious will kick in, and it will dictate behavior, and you're not going to like it. You have to retrain your subconscious mind to do the things that you want it to do in advance, because if you don't, it's going to really screw you over. It's going to hide from the adversity. It's going to hide from the discomfort. It's going to make you it's going to make you fearful. It's going to sap your confidence. And this is why you have to master your mindset, because if you don't, you've got no chance of becoming the type of athlete you want to be. So live by the code in advance. Live by your version of the commando spirit in advance. Develop your personal ethos and keep on aiming up. Like I think that's one of the key lessons from what Mark talks about. Aim up. You've got, like, no matter how low you go, you can always go lower, but that means you can always go up as well. So keep on aiming up as an athlete and keep on aiming up as a human being too. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please head over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review and all that kind of good stuff. And if someone can keep on adding the cult references, that'd make my day. So I'll speak to you all very soon, and until then, keep on crushing training.